recording now.
No.
It is
But I
recording.
just do.
Hello, I'm John, one of the woodshop guys, and here is my crib. Here's my dead truck. Here's my live truck. And this is my shop. Come on into the hockey shop. So we come in. I made this with some of my high school hockey kids and my nephews. My nephews were this big when they came and helped. So I built this myself, and Mr. Horgan helped me with this construction company. The building is stressed skin panels. So they are 6 inches of styrofoam in the walls. So this is as energy efficient as a walk-in cooler. It costs more to heat the house than it does to heat the shop. First machines we come to, there's the planer and the wide belt sander. You can recognize these. We have the same things at NextFab, but mine are different. This one's a little bit wider, this one's a little bit smaller. But the wide belt sander is actually open on the side, so it's 15 inches wide. I can sand something that's 30 inches wide. I send it through and turn it around and send it through again. The planer doesn't have the fancy push buttons to make it go up and down. I have to crank it up and down. But it has its own sharpener built in. You swing this around and you lift up the top and it'll grind the knives right on the machine, so I don't have to take them out. That was definitely the selling point for this planer. Through we got all kinds of hand tools. We got tools for the wood lathe in here. We got all kinds of drill press tools here. There's the drill press. And then I have all my mechanics tools, and there's pinchy things in here, and screwdrivers in here, and all kinds of files in here. And I have extra points for anybody that knows what this is called. This is what there was before there was cordless drills. This is called a Yankee screwdriver. And you can make it go in forward. When you push it in, it'll drive the screw in. Or if you flick it to the back, it'll unscrew it. Oh, it's a little bit stuck. There we go. As you push it in. It's older than me, so it's allowed to be finicky. But this is what I started with before there was cordless drills. Every carpenter had one of these in his toolbox. And you could change the tips on it just like you can on a cordless drill. And I, of course, have 2 of them. I have the radial arm saw, which is for cross-cutting long things. There's a bunch of crap on the table, so I can't really put long things in here. But this guy comes out and cross-cuts things. I have another one of these downstairs that was my dad's. And I remember I was probably 10 when we went to Sears to buy it. The plan for the shop is you come in through the door with the wood, cut it to length here, then you can send it through the planer, or you can come to the joiner over here. Everybody should know what the joiner does. But the joiner takes the rough sawn wood and makes it flat and smooth. So I can join it here, and then go over to the table saw and rip it, and go to the planer. So this is like the wood prep area, and then over there is where I make the stuff. This is a shaper. This is a power feeder for it. But when you swing it out of the way, there's a cutter in here that you can change. So this is basically a giant router table. And the power feeder, you just put the board in and it feeds it through for you, so you don't get the stop and start marks when you're changing your hands. And here are the tools for the shaper. There's all the wrenches and all kinds of bearings in here. And then here are the spindles. So right now this has a 3/4 inch spindle in there, but you can change it to a bigger spindle or a smaller one, or you can even put router bits in it. And then there are knives that you can put in a cutter head. So if you want a custom knife made, you just get these knives come out and go into this molder head. And I actually have a bigger molder head down here, so I can put a knife that's 4 inches tall in the machine. And Just like you can buy router bits, there's all kinds of standard shapes that are shaper cutters with a 3/4 inch hole in them. And then some of them have bigger holes, so that's where you have to change the spindle. So this one has a 1-inch bore in it. And you can make all kinds of moldings by making several passes with different knives, or there's, this cutter head is one of my favorites. It has a bunch of different profiles on it, and you can use parts of it or the whole thing. You can flip it over to make different shapes. And then here's the templates for the custom knives. And where did they go? So these are raised panel cutters to make raised panel doors. And then these are shaper sets. These are matched sets. So if you look at them this way, one of them cuts the profile for the door set. This one copes the end of the board so they fit together. I'll see if I can find one later and show you what that looks like. And then here's some more of them. So that's all the tools for the shaper. And you can adjust the fence in and out, backwards and forwards. And the motor's under here. So these are all the knives that I have for molding. So some of this is for restoration work. Some of it is for new work. I'll get a drawing from an architect for, let's say, a piece of crown molding. And then I'll send the DXF file to the knife company, and they'll grind these for me. So this will cut the molding shape. Here's some more of them. This is a piece of handrail that I made. This went in my mom's house. I don't like roundy things. I like chamfers better. And I like 2 different woods. So this is ash in the middle and padauk on the outside. And somewhere later I'll find one of the spindles that goes with it. So you can also take those knives and put them in here. This is a mold. So this works kind of just like the planer does, only instead of a straight knife, it has the molding profiles in here. So this is the last project that I did, was this piece of crown molding, and I set it up with these guides to run through. And then this is a little piece of beaded molding that I run through there. Probably should have dusted this off before I made the movie, but this is my shop, so this is how it works. Here's my scrap pile, so all the little goodies. It's much better than the scrap pile at NextFab because I'm the only pack rat involved, so I get to keep it all. All right, so now we'll go to the finished part of the shop. So we'll come down here. I have a table saw with a big outfeed table on it. There are various sleds. Some of these you've seen at NextFab. This is the Dubby sled, and then I have a bunch of other little short crosscut sleds. There's some miter sleds under there. There's some fancy ones. There's just a cutoff guy. Sleds are great things for table saws to make them something other than just ripping. Here's my stash pile that you saw before. It is organized. There are skinny pieces there, wider pieces there of hardwood. And you can see most of them are marked on the end what kind of wood it is. When I put it back, I mark them. The other guys who use the shop, maybe not so much. There are small squarish pieces of plywood, 3/4 of an inch thick. There's bigger pieces, up here is 1/4 inch, and then 1/2 inch on this side. And then the big ones that don't fit in the rack just go here up against the wall. Once again, my stash pile is bigger. Here's my clamp cart. You can never have too many clamps. This strange looking thing is an edge bander. The side of a kitchen cabinet that I cut out on the Shopbot. And this edge needs to have edge banding on it. It looks like plywood, not so nice. So this has a hot melt glue tank. It's not all set up right now. But the way it works is you take a piece of plywood, and you slide it through here, and if you can come in here, you can show them how it grabs the piece of edge banding, and it applies the glue to the edge banding as you're coming through, and then you go there, and then it cuts it off. So in real life, it's glued on there in a few seconds. You know, if you want to put edge banding on, the way that we do it at NextFab is you have to use pipe clamps and glue it together, and it's like 45 minutes for the glue to dry. So if you're doing a production thing, this is a really nice machine to have. This is like the least expensive edge bander you can get. Most of the automatic edge banders, you put the boards in flat like this, and it kind of feeds it through itself, and it trims everything. It comes out a finished piece out the other end. And some of them even have return rollers on them that it brings it back to the operator, so if you have to do multiple edges, you can just send it through again. An edge sander that you're all familiar with from NextFab, and my bandsaw. Now, what's different about this bandsaw than all the other bandsaws you've used so far? Right, the blade's on the wrong side. This is a left-handed bandsaw. The right-handed bandsaws, the wheels are over here. So if I had a regular bandsaw and this one, I could cut dovetails because this table tilts this way and the other one tilts that way. This is a 3-wheel bandsaw, so you get a bigger throat with not as much height and not as much. I don't need a 21-inch wheel. These are only like 8-inch wheels that are in here. I have a miter saw and all kinds of stuff. Like if you look down here, here's all the small electric hand tools. And then up here is my collection, part of my collection of hand planes. I really like them. I have, this one would be my favorite smoothing plane. Mostly it's my favorite because it's my dad's. And then I have this little block plane that I'm still working on. I started making this in 1981. I haven't finished it yet. It's almost finished. This is a wooden block plane. So it doesn't have the adjusting screws on it. There's a wedge that goes under here. The only thing I have left to do on it is to smooth it so it fits my hand, so I wouldn't get blisters using it. But other than that, it's all ready to go. This is, if you want to make one of these, there's instructions in James Krenoff's book, Fine Art of Cabinet Making. So before there was that joiner over there was lots of hand planes. And this is a scrub plane. You can see the blade's curved on here. This is for taking off the high spots on the boards. So you would use this. I'll do a whole demonstration on how to use the hand planes in another video. But you start off with this one, and then you go to this one. This is a joiner plane, same as the joiner there. It's long, it runs over the high spots and gets it flat. And then you switch to a smoothing plane. The block planes are for end grain usually. And then I also have some fancy planes. This one is a compass plane. So if you have a curved shape that you need to plane, and it can be either concave, like this, or I can screw it up the other way, and it'll do convex shapes. So anything that's curved, you cut it out with a handsaw or on the bandsaw, and then you can use this to true up your curve. When the Shopbot came along, I still use this. I'll cut the curve on the Shopbot, but I'll use this to finish it off or sand it on the edge sander. I have my set of scrapers here. And then there's all kinds of other goodies up there. The higher up it is, the less I use it. Over here's all my hand routers, and the sanders are up here. There's all kinds of hardware and screws and nails and stuff down here. And then there's the miter saw. And I have, so that I can actually see what I'm doing, I have a little bit of light on the situation. And behind this is a bow saw. So this was the best handsaw of old because it put the blade in tension. You would wind it up like this. So the string puts tension on these two arms and it stretches the blade. So you can make the blade thinner, a thinner kerf. You don't have to work so hard when you're cutting. And I have a couple different blades I can change out in here This one's a coarse one. I have a fine one and an even coarser one. So this is the medium blade. I actually have 4 blades for it. I have 2 coarse ones and a really fine one. And you can cut nice curves with this. So as you may have noticed, everything in here that weighs less than 500 pounds is on wheels. I have carts for material, carts for machines. The bandsaw is on wheels, so I can roll it wherever I want. It has a really long cord on it. This cart has all of my stuff on it, so I can roll it up next to where I'm working. It has all the screws in here. It has all the brads, the brad nailer. My jigsaw is on there. Usually my tool bag full of hand tools is on here, but it's at 1800 right now. And it's a 2-sided guy. We have more stuff on the other side. It has pockets to hold the cordless drill. And I have some clamps on it. You never have enough clamps. Is a 500-pound roll of PET plastic that is 25 thousandths of an inch thick. This is what we're using to make face shields for virus fighting. They're going to pen. This has 1,100 feet on here, which is enough to make 3,300 face shields. And there are 3 more of these, and then there's another 17,000 pounds coming over to Greg Stanford's shop. Should be in on Monday. So hopefully we can make enough to keep everybody safe. All right, so here we have the Shopbot. My Shopbot looks very different than the ones at NextFab. This guy is 18 years old. When I bought mine, you had a choice. You could buy just the machine or the machine with the table. I opted to make my own table. This is actually the second iteration of my table. The first one I made out of extruded aluminum, and it was too wiggly. So this is solid maple with mortise and tenon joints and plywood on the sides, very stiff. It's different. This is a PRT as opposed to the PRS that we have at NextFab. So I don't have the big beam with it going across. I have 2 rails that it runs back and forth on, but it still serves me well. I love my Shopbot. Mine has a few extra goodies on it that I put. So this plate that you see on the end with these pins on it allows me to hang stuff off the end and machine the ends of boards, which you can't do on the $100,000 routers unless you, well, actually you can't. You need an aggregate head to tilt the router sideways. So I can cut mortise and tenons on here. I wrote a couple of special scripts for doing them to do multiples. The array of goodies that goes on here with the air cylinders is down at NextFab on the multi-router that's down there. So I can't show you how it works here. And then I upgraded, it came with bent steel rails, so I upgraded last year to these hardened rails, and I made it longer. So the table is 4x8, but I can cut 4x10 on here. So I could actually put something this big hanging off the end and be able to machine the end of it. And then if you come down to this end, I'll show you some of the other goodies that I have on here. So here's my indexer. This is the jet lathe from NextFab. It used to have the jet lathe head on it, but I changed it to this guy here. I used to make hat blocks, and I needed a way to tilt the hat block so that it wasn't spinning like toilet paper. I could tilt the head up so that it spins like a record, and I can stop every 15 degrees in between. So if you're making a hat that's a fedora, where it has the pinch in the front and the dent in the top, I put them on here so I machine the outside of them, but you can't do the dent in the top. And then over there is my desk with all of that crap on it. Over there is stuff on carts, but I want to show you up on the shelf. Can you see the little house up there with the little windows in it? That's a dollhouse I made for my mom. And I made the rafters that are in there. I cut them all to scale, cut the bird's mouths in them, put the soffits and fascias on there, but I'm not going to take it down to show you. And the goofy Pythagorean triangle up there is the logo for my CAD software. It's called Pytha. and that's their logo. I helped them out in a trade show, 2004, I think. Yeah. So that was the little stands in the booth was their logo. We put a piece of glass on it and had the computers on that for the demos, for the software. It's 3D modeling software. It's kind of it's suited really well for woodworkers. It has all kinds of woodworking shortcuts in it. Like SolidWorks has shortcuts for making machine parts. This has, I can make 2 flat boards and I can click on the 2 of them and it'll put dovetails in them with 2 mouse clicks. It'll do finger joints, all kinds of stuff like that for woodworkers. We'll go down to the lower level of the shop. You thought that this was it? No, there's a whole nother basement level. Come on down. So there's some storage down here, but here is the machine shop. So over here is my South Bend lathe, which I'm very proud of. I learned how to use it, and my roommate Mike helped me a lot with that. And then over here we have a mill drill. So this is kind of a toy version of a Bridgeport. I'm hoping really bad to get a Bridgeport fairly soon. This thing that looks like a Bridgeport, but it's not a Bridgeport, is a Johansson drill press. So it's got a really long quill on it, longer than on the Bridgeports. And this is a radial drill press. And when you finally get to see 1800 open, there's a radial drill press there in the wood shop. So this lets me, if I release all the latches, I can pull this in and out, and I can spin it around. So I can drill holes anywhere that I can reach with this. So this table cranks up and down. I can actually crank the post up and down to raise this up. And in the back there, underneath the pile of crap, is another table like this, that's this high. So I could bolt something to that and drill holes in it. It also has a drill feature and it has a tap feature. So for tapping, this is a 3-phase motor, so it can auto reverse. There's 2 micro switches, one here and one here. So I bring it down to just above the hole, it starts to turn. Once it engages, the tap will self-feed into the material, and then when this gets down to the other micro switch, the bottom of the hole, it'll auto reverse and unscrew the tap out of the part. This is awesome. Now there's a pile of wood in the back. It's a cherry tree from my doctor's house. He called me one day and said, I got a cherry tree came down in my yard. Do you want it? And I'm thinking it's, like a cherry tree in somebody's backyard. But he lives in the woods. I thought it was like this big. I said, how big is it? He said, it's 80 feet tall and about 2 feet across at the bottom. I said, I'll be right there. Underneath this pile of stuff is another pile of wood. So in here, there's walnut, ash, maple, some cherry, and some oak. That he called me a couple months after we cut that up. He said, John, we cleared a lot. There's a lot of trees on it. Can you come over and tell me if they're worth anything? So I drove over, and there was a pile 20 feet long, 6 feet wide, and 6 feet high of tree trunks. And I said, yeah, they're all worth something, Joe. So it took 2 trips with his lowboy tractor trailer, the thing that moves the giant bulldozers, to get all that stuff to the mill. They sliced it all up for me, and then I had it stacked outside with stickers in it for it to air dry for a couple of years. So now I have a big pile of wood out of a farmhouse only a couple miles from here. There's a sandblaster that belongs to Ed. There's a bunch of stuff back here. We have some metal parts that have accumulated over time. There's some Bosch tubing, so this is the metal stash for making stuff in the metal shop that's here. And that's about it.